So, all right. So, our guest, Mr. DJ Hyde, is on the line. So let's get him on here. DJ, you're live on Totally Dirven Radio.
How are you guys?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm quite all right. I'm just sitting at the CZW dojo.
Oh, nice.
Just got done training tonight. I apologize. I'm a little later than I would have liked to have been. I kind of lost track of time.
That's all right.
So, it happens when you're beating people up.
Now, I mean, you took over the whole thing over there. I mean, you bought the federation from John, and you're running the school now. And what made you? I mean, you were trained by John, and you were working for John. What made you want to just take over and own everything?
Some of that information is wrong. Oh, all right.
Oh.
Okay. I originally wasn't trained at CZW. I got more formal training at CZW. I didn't break in here.
Okay.
I was kind of trained the old school on the road way. I had been wrestling for a few years, just not really knowing anything. I was pretty much just a dumb kid at that point.
Gotcha.
When I got to CZW, I got that. But basically, I don't know how many fans out there have heard me tell these stories time and time again. I was with World Wrestling Entertainment for a little while, and that did not work out. And when I came back to CZW, I was already running the school. I've been running the school for more than a decade and a half. I mean, if you look at the guys I've trained, Drew Gulaks and Adam Coles, and the list goes on and on. It was just the next step. I love the wrestling business probably as much as I love anything in the world, maybe more. And I looked at it and said, what am I going to do when I'm like 50? You can't go out there and you're not going to be, the guy. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be, the guy who's out there stealing the shows, or the guy who's out there being the tough guy or the badass guy or whatever it is.
Right.
And I look at guys like, Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan and stuff like that now today, and I really I love them. I truly think they're amazing, and I don't want to see them wrestle anymore.
Right, right.
I'm all for Ric Flair promo, but I don't think I want to see Flair at 60-some years old out there doing things, or Hogan at 50-some years old, dropping leg drops on guys that are in their 20s and look like $1 million, and it just wasn't believable to me. And how I looked at it was, how am I going to stay in this business? And I always thought to myself, okay, I'm going to change the business. We're going to try and change the business. And when I came back, I always had in my head, okay, well, when my time comes, I'll just start my own thing, and I'll just do that. And
right,
why do that when you could literally take over your home and take over not just your home, one of the biggest promotions, in the world.
Sure.
CZW is world renowned, and it's just if you look at from the era I took over and look at the success of the wrestlers and things that have come out of this place, it's uncanny and unparalleled. But at that time, it just kind of started out at the whim. I was already doing so many things behind the scenes that people didn't know. It was, running the school was just part of it, and, helping with this and helping with that. And I was that guy, and it just kind of said, this is what I want to do in my life, and, when I'm older, I'm 70, I can still run a wrestling company,
Sure, right.
If I make it that long. But that was kind of the thought. It was, I love our business. I truly have a passion for it that is unparalleled to most people. And, it's the reason that I do the things I do. Not a lot of people say, hey, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get dropped on my head for a living, and it's just not a normal thing. And for me, it was never about hey, this is what I like doing. This is what I have to do. It's what, it's what drives me. It's why I wake up,
Right.
So, at the time, that's kind of how I felt.
Wow. Now, you're also part owner of the Women's Federation, too, Women's Superstars Uncensored?
Nope, I am the owner. I bought that out 2 years ago, 100%. So,
wow, look at that.
And,
okay.
Yeah, So WSU originally, and I'll tell this story. originally owned by Sean McCafferty, the Mick, as he's known, and it was sold a few times and then became the property of Drew Cordair. Drew Cordair runs a company called Beyond Wrestling, which is fairly predominant in the wrestling world right now. It's really coming up. They're putting on phenomenal shows. And me and Drew started doing business. And at the time, Beyond was doing these in-house type of tapings where they would, find somebody's gym and they would bring 70, 80 wrestlers in and they would just do matches for the wrestlers and they would put them on YouTube. And, Beyond started as a major social media type of thing and through YouTube, and it was becoming very successful. I looked at it as a place where I could watch guys and develop them. And that's kind of how, that process started, where I saw guys like a JT Dunn, who is a perfect example because he is a Beyond staple. That's where I would watch him, and I would go to Drew and say, hey, man, can you see JT wrestle AR Fox? Or, hey, let's see Biff Busick wrestle Drew Gulak. Or one of the guys that's like, hey, I know this guy's good. Not a guy that's like, oh, this is just some random-the-mill guy. Develop him. And Drew was having some problems running his girls' shows. And financially, it just made sense for us to do some double headers and see how it went. The first one went very successfully. And I also, we have a dojo. I've trained some of the top girls in indie wrestling, the Mia Yims and Kimberlys of the world. And, it just kind of fit and made sense at the time. And then we started doing that for a little bit. I think that lasted for about 5 or 6 months, and where we would do WSU in the afternoon, every other show, and then we'd run CZW at night. And it would be the setup. And then I think Beyond really started running shows at their home building, which is Fed Music Hall up in Providence, Rhode Island at that point. And it really came a lot for Drew to handle. So I came in and partnered with him because at the time they had some needs financially, and I had the ability to do it. So I came in, became the partner, and then that eventually led to me, taking over because I think he was so consumed with Beyond, and I understand Beyond's his baby just like CZW is to me, and I looked at it as WSU is a brand of Combat Zone Wrestling. It is our women's brand. It is a different concept of wrestling that is the same vision of CZW, but a little bit different because these are women and doing different things. And right away, right out the door, I did some real controversial stuff. And when I took over, and it was kind of one of those things that I looked at it like, okay, we need to get WSU in everybody's mouth one way or another. And yes, we're revered and we're one of the top 3 and all that, like we're the big 3 women's companies, but we need them to talk about us because we're kind of not on the level of the other 2, and it just started happening, and it's grown from there.
Wow. Now, how about, I really haven't followed the wrestling business since I've gotten out of it. Like, as I say, like, and you'll probably agree, like, if you're watching it and you're around it, you get that bug and you want to be in it. You want to be involved. So I've kind of, like, really blocked the wrestling world out of my eyesights for my own sanity. But like from the tidbits I see, whether it's online or talking to people, the women I really, really think are truly the future of the business because they've come such a long way, and they're so talented now, and there's so many of them that want to be. They don't want to be just that ringside fluff. They want to be inside that square circle now.
Well, I think, I make this comparison to a lot of girls because at this point, there are people that are coming to me because of their success and because of, people are sending them to me, and I go to them and I go, hey, if I got in the ring with you, could you physically beat me? To maybe some like, what was that girl I talked to the other day? I talked to a girl named Brittany Baker. All right, she's from Pittsburgh area, I guess, like that Midwest, and somebody sent her to me and said, hey, you need to work here. This is the place that's going to really take you from A to B. And I said, if you were wrestling DJ Hyde, I am 6'4", I am 280 pounds. I am a very large human being, and I've done everything. I've wrestled for every major company there is. I've been all around the world. Could you beat me? And she said, no. She goes, you kill me. And I said, okay. So if DJ Hyde was in the ring with, say, a Ronda Rousey or a Holly Holcomb, okay, who's about the same size and weight as this girl, I mean, I think she's like maybe 125 pounds or something like that, could they beat me? And she said, yeah. And I said, there's no difference between you and them. And, you know, I mean, just the way that, like, Rousey has been portrayed in movies and things like that, it's really shown that women can step and be that. And if you look at some of the girls, like, that have come out of the CZW dojo, you know, Kimberly is now the grand champion of Chikara. I mean, that's a girl that I trained. Mia Yim, you know, predominantly has made a name wrestling men. You know, so is Kimberly. And, you know, now we have, you know, Brittany Blake and Penelope Ford. And there's more to come. And because we have a lot of girls at the dojo now. And it's just, they're taught to not be, you know, they're taught to be, you know, you got to be able to hang with the guys, you know. And Brittany Blake is she's 90 pounds and she's 5 foot nothing, but she's wrestling Connor Claxton for the Medal of Valor on the Dojo Award show this weekend, you know, at Combat Zone's, you know, Cage of Death event. And you know, Connor's a full-fledged guy who's, you know, he's been to the finals of Tournament of Death. He's traveling the world now, and you know, he's predominant Raymond, and this little 90-pound girl is going to take him on, you know, and nobody's batting an eye at. So, I mean, you know, you have to see the things that go on there, and that's how these girls are taught. And, you know, like I said, like if you look at it, DJ Hyde, Ronda Rousey, Holly Holcomb, yeah, those girls could probably take you, DJ. There's nothing different between them and Brittany Blake or Penelope Ford or, you know, Brittany Baker or any of the other girls, Kimberly, you know, it doesn't really matter. So, you know, I think women are definitely the future, and I think that's something that you're going to start seeing a lot more of, whether you see it on the, you know, the television level or the television products. You're definitely going to start seeing a lot more of it from me.
Now, something else that's really changed, too, in the whole independent wrestling business since I was involved and promoting shows and whatever, but now there's the whole pay-per-view thing where people can watch the live shows online as they're happening. Does that hurt your ticket sales at all, like on a local basis? I mean, from a nationwide or worldwide thing, it's great because you're getting the product out there, but locally, does it hurt your ticket sales at all?
I would say yes and no. The pay-per-view is a little cheaper than the ticket is, you know, about $5. But being at an event, like specifically, you know, because this is Cage of Death is it's not a regular show. There are some of our shows that are not like, oh, I'm going to go to your local independent and blah blah. No, it's not like that. You know, this is an event. People are flying in from places. You know, I got a guy this morning who emailed me. He's like, I'm coming from Miami. Can I get a VIP seat? And I'm like, dude, it's the week of the show. You know what I mean? The tickets are long. I mean, the front 2 rows sold out in like 23 minutes or something crazy like that. You know, and you're sitting there going like, you know, is this affecting it? It's good and bad, because I'll tell you, we run shows in Europe. We run shows in Germany and England, and we've ran shows in Italy. We've ran shows in Mexico, recently in Canada. We've ran shows in Japan. So there's a fan base. We have a fan base in Ohio where we run shows, and New York. Some of those fans might take the trek. You know, I'll use Ohio as an example because we have a very large fan base in Ohio because we've done more shows out there, and a lot of our talent wrestles for a company that we work with out there that I wrestle for called Rockstar Pro. Those people are, you know, they don't have a lot of money that they're going to make the 9-hour drive to Voorhees, New Jersey, you know, but they do have the $15 that they can go to, you know, stream CZW and tune into the pay-per-view and watch it live. And maybe they didn't want to see it live. Maybe they had to work on Saturday nights, or, you know, maybe something along those lines just happened that, you know, okay, oh, man, I missed it. They can go and watch the replay. They can watch it live if they want to from the comfort of their own home. I mean, and now with the way technology is, you know, we have a whole line of new products. We have CZW Studios, which we've launched this year, and now it just launched a couple weeks ago on Roku. You know, you can actually watch it on your television. So, I mean, and it's HD quality. You know, CZW has never messed up on an pay-per-view. We are the one company that can make that claim. to where, you know, some of the major companies like the Ring of Honors and the TNAs, you know, who've done that have. You know, even the WWE Network isn't perfect. We haven't fallen behind on that. And
right.
It's a good tool because, you know, if you're in Tokyo, Japan, and we have fans, like I already know that there is 4 front row tickets of people that I know are coming from Japan, that I know because I know who they are when they bought them. Like, I've met them and I've spoke to them, and when I've spent time in Japan wrestling for the companies over there, they're coming over here to see that. So people are watching us everywhere. You know, I have fans I talk to on social media that are in Europe because I frequent Europe quite a lot, and we have a huge following over there. You know, and we work with other promotions, WXW in Germany, Southside Wrestling, Progress. You know, we're most recently working with IWC. It's, you know, a lot of things are going on, you know, but they follow that. And we also have wrestlers from those places, you know, so they might want to follow a wrestler that's going to be here or their favorite guy, you know, and that's what they do. So, you know, it's a hindrance because, yeah, you can live 10 minutes away and you can go, you know what, man, I don't feel like driving down the street. I don't want to put up with all them crazy people and have to park and, you know, sit out in the cold or whatever and wait in line and, you know, but you also have that ability to reach more people and get a bigger audience than you could probably get. You know, that audience is bigger than, you know, the city of Philadelphia, you know, or even the state of Pennsylvania that I could actually reach on that pay-per-view.
Right. Now, I think you probably already answered my next question. And back years ago when I was, like I said, still around in the business and all, I would pop in on a show here and there, or especially like just pop in to like see what the whole Cage of Death thing was. And I'll never forget that first time I walked into a Cage of Death show at the old arena, and I was blown away by the amount of, like, you couldn't move. Like, you walked in and, like, that was it. Like, I walked in and I couldn't move any further because there was just so many people sandwiched in that building. And I was just blown away. And then I flashed back to years earlier, the old TWA, where it would be the same thing, where there would be these big shows and there'd be thousands of people there. And then you wonder, like, where those people are for the remainder of the year, for the other, you know, your shows throughout the year. Like, where did them people go?
You sound a lot like me because I say that all the time, and I go, you know, I'll say, you know, Cage of Death is never drawn under 1,000 plus, never. You know, I've been here for almost the entire existence of CZW. You know, whether it was I started just as a fan of the product, or whether I've actually was a wrestler or someone who was here paying dues, and to now where, you know, I'm a predominant figure in wrestling, and then I become the owner and so forth and so forth. It really kind of blows your mind of how, you know, Cage of Death is going to draw that number, and then we're going to come back and we're going to run our next scheduled event after Cage of Death is February, which is our anniversary weekend for WSU and CZW. And we'll probably draw, you know, 300-400 people. And you're going, wait a minute, the house is it's less than half. You know, you factor out the people that are traveling from crazy people. Why are these people not coming? They're coming because Cage of Death is unlike something anywhere else you're going to see. It's not a wrestling show. It's not your local, we're going to go to the wrestling show Saturday. No, it is an event. It's the same reason why WrestleMania, you know, for World Wrestling Entertainment, and I use that because most fans know that. They may not know of even major independents like Ring of Honor and CZW or Evolve. You know, they know WWE, they know what that is, but WrestleMania is going to set attendance records this year. Okay, They already know that's going to happen. Why are 100,000 people just going to go to that show, but then when they come back with, I don't know, Backlash or whatever it's going to be called, Battleground, it's like, you know, 17, 20, you know, they'll still do and they'll do huge numbers on pay-per-view for that, or they'll get big subscriptions for the network. Why is that change? It's because it's an event. It's because it's something that's unlike anything else out there, and nobody can duplicate what CZW does, and nobody has what we have, and you know, people have tried it and they just don't do it successful. Cage of Death is one of the premier events on independent wrestling. There's probably about 4 to 5 of them out there, in my opinion, but it is a show of shows of shows, and CZW has about 4 or 5 shows like that a year. But Cage of Death is the biggest one we do, and it is our big show, and it is where everybody that's within the company is going to be ready to go and go in, and that's why we're turning it into a bigger event. And we've added Dojo Wars, we've added our meet and greets, and little fan festival type thing, and it's different, and
right.
That's why I think that's going to happen.
Now, how about with the Cage of Death? You do this every year, and it is exactly what you said. It is an event. It's something to be seen. How hard does it get each year now to go and top it the next year and next year? Because you guys have done so much with this.
It's not always about topping it. I think it's about making it special. I think I have a much different view than Zandig did when he owned the company. I have a much different view on professional wrestling. I have a much different take on our company, and I think a lot of the old school fans don't like some of it because they're so used to that way, and
right.
And what John had when he started CZW. And my view is different. My view is actually different from most wrestling companies, and I'd probably say all. I am in the view of something for everybody, and I don't try to sit there and go, okay, we got to do crazier and bigger and more blood, and I don't do that. I go, we need to give people a great time and something that when they walk out of here, they go, that was awesome. That was amazing. Yeah. I love this. And sometimes, you don't have to have that over-the-top thing. So it's just like anything else in life. Sometimes when somebody makes a small gesture, just somebody says thank you to you, it's a big deal. And we don't always try and do that, but we try to be original. And we try to be special. We try to be different. Every year that cage changes. We have to come up with new concepts. We have to constantly reinvent ourselves. The guys that do those style of matches, an example of that, if you look at last year's Cage of Death, you had Drew Gulak. He's a catch wrestler. He's one of the best wrestlers in the world, purebred. Biff Busick is currently at NXT. These are not guys. And you had Black G's, who, he's been in the cage before, but not that style. And Sozio, these are not guys that you would go, oh, these are deathmatch guys. They're hardcore guys. It'll be good. These are guys that are pure wrestlers for the most part, characters. They are not that these are, the hack and slash guys. They are in that this year, in last year. And then you look at someone like this year, yes, you have Matt Tremont, you have Masada, but then you have Devin Moore. Devin Moore is in more Cage of Death than anybody in history, but he's not that's what he does. And then you have A.R. Fox. A.R. Fox has never ventured into this realm. He's never been in these style of matches, and now he's in it. So it's definitely, something that stands out and something that's way different.
Wow. Now, also too, I was when you Google DJ Hyde, you'll see either pictures of you in the ring wrestling,
crazy deathmatch stuff,
or you'll see crazy deathmatch stuff, or you'll see you in a suit, and it's like. Yeah. It's like all world, all ends of the spectrum here, and I just think to myself, now you are, and I can say this, you're a businessman as well, and you're professional. And I was doing a convention up at the Bucks County Tech School a few years back, and I had a table set up right next to you, and you the whole time we're talking with somebody, and you were working a deal and about working together and doing shows together, and I was like, this dude is just so professional, and he's on the ball about working together with people, and he's open to this idea and that idea, and then I just think it's so funny. You see the pictures of you as a businessman, and then you see the pictures where you're just a bloody mess.
Well, I think. I'll be honest. The reputation of DJ Hyde is not always positive. And I'll just be honest with you. And while I really appreciate you saying that, there are a lot of things that I do that our business is a very certain way. And in business, like, I have a certain mindset, like, and I don't believe in a lot of other, like, faux pas about things. I believe our business, I've been saying this for probably 3 years, our business is in a change. It's literally in a huge change. The old school guys that, that are the big stars of the 90s and even the early 2000s and stuff, that style is not around anymore. The Kevin Owenses and the Seth Rollinses and the this is what we do. I mean, if you look at those, just to name those two guys, they've both been here. Dean Ambrose here. If you look at the NXT roster and pretty much every predominant guy that was on the independents, as well as some of the girls, they're a product of CZW. And if you look at the major companies that are out there in the indies that, are CZW's, either partners or competition or on the same level as us, like a Ring of Honor, I'll give you an example. Adam Cole is probably the best independent wrestler in the land. Like, that kid's going to be huge. He could be the next Stone Cold Steve Austin tomorrow. He's that good. Why is he at Ring of Honor and not CZW? I mean, he's one of my best friends. I mean, he was in my wedding. It's, why would he not work for me? It's very simple. They have more money, and it is a business. And for me, I'm always looking to grow my company. 2016 is going to be a very, very key year for us. We've launched a lot of stuff here in the fourth quarter. I'm sure we can talk about CZW Studios because I believe that is the future of our business. And, with that, with iPay-per-view, we have the possibility of, we're looking at television. We're looking at so many other avenues of things that we want to do. And you also have on this level, there's a lot of competition and a lot of people who think that, that their product is better than everybody else's. I will never say, yes, I believe we are one of the premiers, but we're not the only. I believe that there are so many different places out there that you can get your wrestling fix, because I wrestle at CZW, yes, but I also wrestle at Legacy Wrestling and New York Wrestling Connection and Excite and Rockstar and Smash and so forth and so forth. So if you're, you want the product of DJ Hyde or any other wrestler, you might find them at 5 or 6 different places. So you can get your fix there. It's like ice cream, or better yet, hamburgers. How many different hamburger joints are there out there?
Yeah.
So they're all selling the same thing. It's nothing different. It's just one has ketchup and mustard. One calls it it's one throws bacon on it and calls it the Baconator. It's a bacon cheeseburger. You can get that anywhere. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Well, one adds some special sauce. And that's just their play on it. And it's getting tougher to do. So, that's one of the reasons why I want to work with as many places as possible. I believe that if we all work together, we'll succeed. The problem is that there's only so many people and only so many fans, and only so much money, which is the key term in professional wrestling because it is a business, that goes around. And a lot of promoters don't see that. And if we all fight amongst that small piece of the pie, if we're just fighting about it, well, that pie is going to get really small for everybody.
Exactly.
But if we start working together, we're going to make our piece of that pie bigger. And I've always believed that. And I've always tried new things. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And sometimes it's my fault, sometimes it's not. So, you're kind of second guessing a lot of things, and that's why, hey, you're sitting here telling me, hey, I saw you doing this and I was at my table. Yeah, I'd love to have you on board with us. It's anything that makes not just my company, but your business flow just as well. So That's one of the reasons why I like doing these interviews, because I want to work with so many people. Not only do I want you to have you interview me, I want you to interview my talent. I want you to talk to my guys. I want you every week talking about Combat Zone Wrestling and WSU and Dojo Wars and the CZW Academy and CZW Studios, etc. Because that's how our business should be.
Sure.
Unfortunately, that's not how it is. Unfortunately, it's I don't like this guy, or this guy, people don't like him because of how he dresses, or he didn't shake my hand once. Petty stuff. It's hey, we're here to make money. We're here to make our business better. We're here to put on good shows and things that people enjoy. So let's work together and make it great for everyone.
Absolutely. Now, the big show is Saturday night, or actually Saturday. Like you said, it's a whole day-long
All
thing.
Day. Yeah. Starts at 1 o'clock. I can run it down if you want.
Yeah, run it down.
You also got to look at it. Yeah, it is a long day, but it's an event. You know, WrestleMania is a long day, but people still have a great time. Yeah. So what we've decided to do this year is we're going to open up. You know, we're going to open doors at 12:30, but at 1 o'clock we're going to start a little fan festival with a little bit of meet and greet at the start of CZW, as well as our new Dojo Wars project. You know, we're going to have some fun little games, a little bit of trivia, maybe some video game tournaments. We've talked about auctioning off some wrestlers and doing some fun things. Apparently, Danny Havoc is in high demand. So, you know, there's some lovely young ladies who want to buy him, which was just a joke, but has started into, you know, a very serious conversation because he's like, I'll do it. And I'm just like, oh, God. But we're going to have some fun, and we're going to interact with the fans, and that's really something that, you know, we don't really get to do. And then at 2 o'clock, we are going to host our Dojo Wars project. Now, the Fan Festival, as well as the Dojo Wars project, you know, it's only $5 to get in. Dojo Wars is a product that is spawned out of the CZW Wrestling Academy. It is our version of NXT. What it is a teaching tool for us to mold the future of professional wrestling. You know, it's giving you opportunity to wrestle in front of a place where you can make mistakes. And we've been doing that here at the dojo, and it just gets bigger and bigger. It's become very successful. So now, for the first time ever, we're going to take it out of the dojo. You know, we've done 50 shows almost, and, you know, we're going to do it on the biggest day in CZW. And you're going to have the CZW students as well as people who are trying to learn or trying to earn a spot to get to the main roster, you know, and that are maybe from someplace else, you know, go out there and put on a show. To get into this, it's either $5 at the door, $5, or you can bring a brand new unwrapped toy for Toys for Tots, and that will get you in. And
which
you're
going
to hit there and get a...
The whole thing with you guys working awesome with Toys and Tots, yeah, that's great.
Well, this is, you know, the 13th consecutive year that we've done that with the United States Marine Corps, and my goal this year is we have typically broken records every year for the East Coast of what we provide them toys-wise. So this year, I want to shatter that record. So, you know, I made a huge investment and said, hey, you know, this is what we're going to do, and here's how it's going to be, you know. And, you know, the opportunity on this show, you know, at the end, the main event is a battle royal. The winner of the battle royal will make it on the Cage of Death show. And they will have a match on Cage of Death, which is a huge opportunity. And there are people pulling out of the woodwork from everywhere that's going to be in this battle royal. I actually don't know how we're going to fit them all in the ring. But that opportunity is something that's worth fighting for. On top of, you're going to see great action. As I said, Penelope Ford is going to wrestle Connor Claxton. I mean, not Penelope, Brittany Blake is going to wrestle Connor Claxton. I apologize. I'm in the dojo, and it just blows my mind because that's who I saw today. But Brittany Blake is, you know, she's made it to the main roster of WSU. Connor has made it to the main roster of CZW already. Connor is the champion of Valor. He has the Medal of Valor, and he's going to put it on the line in a 2 out of 3 falls match against the beautiful Brittany Blake. You know, you're going to have a no ropes match, which is something you're not traditionally going to see, with Kurt Robinson taking on Frankie Picard, who they've kind of developed a little rivalry here in the CZW Wrestling Academy. So you'll have that on the show. You know, Guns A-Blazing is taking on Penelope Ford in Business Casual, you know, and a lot of time Guns A-Blazing is so big, there's so many people that are in that, you never know who's going to show up. You know, you have, you know, the big scare Dan O'Hare taking on, you know, beautiful Blake. It's a number of things, you know. And George Gatton, you know, taking on Cannonball, and, you know, or Jeff Cannonball, whatever you want. I call him Cannonball. You know, and those are two guys locally that are, you know, hugely over in this area, you know. So they're all fighting for spots and trying to impress one of the biggest crowds there is. You know, and we're going to run that for about, you know, till about 5, 6 o'clock, and then we will unfortunately ask everybody to step outside and get ready for our Cage of Death events. And then we will start the Cage of Death show, which will, you know, will open up with, you know, a pre-show. Our pre-show event will have a scramble match where the winner will be in our Best of the Best tournament, which is one of our next big shows in April, which is one of the most prestigious tournaments there is. We have not announced any of the competitors for this, so you may see some CZW familiar faces. You may see people you've never seen, young guys looking for an opportunity, or you might see some veterans of wrestling. You might see some big-name stars. You never know. And then we have Leo Rush, who's kind of blowing up the indie scene, young guy breaking in, taking on Joey Janela for the CZW Wire Championship. I mean, he stole a show at the last month's show, and they expect to do it again. The Amazing Gulags, we're going to take on the Beaver Boys in a tag team extravaganza, and, you got Tony Nese. Most people probably remember him from Impact Wrestling, taking on Greg Excellence. We have that Dojo Wars match that, somebody from Dojo Wars will have a match on the main show. You have the Black G's and Pepper Parks. They are TV ready with the beautiful Cherry Bomb, who will be taking on Dan Barry and Bill Carr, Team Tremendous, for the CZW Tag Team Championships. Then you have Joe Gacy and Tim Donst in an I Quit match. And then you have the return of Solomon Crow. Sami Callihan, recently left WWE NXT, is returning home to the Combat Zone, and you'll see him in action, as well as a CZW staple of regular traditional death match competition between Danny Havoc of the Nation of Intoxication and, a standout from CZW's Tournament of Death this year, Ricky Shane Page, and you never know what they're going to do. I mean, and to end the night, CZW World Championship, Cage of Death match. Masada, Devin Moore, AR Fox, and the CZW World Champion, the Bulldozer, Matt Tremont, in the Cage of Death. And the winner's going to walk out the CZW World Champion. And tickets are at the door. It's $25, or you can watch it live on iPay-per-view at streamczw.com. Or if you want to check out CZW, czwstudios.com for $10 a month. You get every CZW, Legacy, Five Boroughs, WSU, on top of documentaries, shoot interviews, et cetera, and all the other great things that we put up there at your will on all devices. And you can watch it on Roku or Apple or whatever system you have. I can rant.
You got it all going on. And you went through all that, and the one thing I do notice is you're not working on this show.
I was in the main event of the last show. I did a match called the Squared Circle of Sacrifice. Doesn't mean you won't see me on the show in some fashion or form, but I am a professional wrestler by trade. I have wrestled. I had a few wrestling events this past weekend, and I'm the boss. As you said, you've seen pictures of me in a suit. You'll see me in a suit when you arrive.
Right.
I have business to take care of. You may see me on the show in a wrestling capacity. You may not. It's just, business is more important. And when you're the boss, you got to play the role. There's so many things, and so many things can go wrong. And
sure,
we have a very, very large payroll. We have a very large staff. We have to, security. And on top of, I'm also, I'm the booker. I am the guy behind the scenes. I am, I have so many hats. And
right.
A show like this, sometimes, I have a great staff. Our staff, literally, I would not be able to do so much without them, without the trainees who help out, or without my production team, Pancoast Productions, or without, the director of CZW, James Figueroa. These guys, they're the best in wrestling. They truly are. And they help us put on a product that is truly like nothing else and give fans a better environment. But, a show like this sometimes, as I said, it's as I get older, my job is I'm the owner and the promoter, and I'm not a guy who doesn't realize that. And this is our big show, and on top of the afternoon, these are a lot of these guys that are on the Dojo Wars are people that I've helped and I've trained, and that I have a huge investment in, and I need to watch that product, and I need to make sure that things are going the way they need to go, and that's part of being the boss. And sometimes you might have to sacrifice things. I love being in the ring, and you might see me there, you might not.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to give away everything, but you know, it's when you arrive to the show or when you leave that either event, you will probably see me there thanking you for attending in a suit, nice pretty tie, you know, my hair nice a bit done, shaved, looking spiffy, and you know, thanking you for supporting us and supporting what we do and what we love to do. So you know, that role is way more important than any role that I could be in a wrestling capacity.
Now, here's a question I was thinking about too. What, like, when you got into wrestling, what did your family think, first of all?
Well, you got to remember too that we do our Tournament of Death events on my family's farm now. So,
oh, really?
You know, Tournament of Death is held at you know, I mean, if anybody who wants to Google DJ Hyde, you'll find really quickly my real name is David John Markland. It is held at Markland's Little Acres. My parents have 157 acres of land in Townsend, Delaware, which CZW refers to it as the Ultraviolet Underground. And, you know, when I first got into wrestling, it was kind of something, it's like, the story of me is I was a 4-year All-American football player in high school. I went to Penn State on a scholarship, and I literally the first day there, I tore my MCL, my ACL, my right leg, and, you know, I didn't think I was ever going to walk again. I was one of the biggest wrestling fans you ever met. I mean, I'll try and keep the story short because I don't want to take up too much time. But, I mean, my love of professional wrestling started very, very early. You know, me and my father would watch wrestling. My father's from Tennessee, so we would watch all this, like, Southern stuff and, like, WCW type stuff and NWA, old wrestling. And it was the one thing we bonded over. Like, I knew sports, he knew cars. Like, my dad couldn't tell you who Michael Jordan is. You know, if you said LeBron James, he'd probably look at you and be like, who? You know, but he could tell you what's on a 65 Chevelle. He could tell you every single part. He could tell you what kind of spark plug it takes, you know. I mean, that's just how he is. And me, I can't change the oil in my car. You know,
right.
I take it to a special place, and that's what they do. And, you know, wrestling was the one thing that we did together. And, you know, when I got into it, it was something that, like, hey, I wish I would have known there were, like, wrestling schools and stuff, you know, when I was younger that were affordable. You know, there was always the Wild Samoans and the Monster Factories, and they're like $5,000 now. They were $5,000 back then, and $5,000 back then, and, you know, it might as well have been $1 million, you know.
Right.
And for me, it just kind of came through that. And when I'm looking back at it now, you sit there and I just kind of go, okay, well, that's where it started. And then when I came home and you know, the scholarship was done and I didn't get to achieve and accomplish what I set forth, I went to my local wrestling show. And my local wrestling show just happens to be ECWA. I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware. And when I was little, I used to walk to wrestling shows. I've been to St. Matthew's Parish, and, you know, I used to go and watch that show all the time. I've seen, you know, all the greats, and I was there. You know, I was one of those smart guys that had all the actor mags and could tell you everything about every match, and, you know, I knew this stuff. And I was that way as a teenager, and I was that way, you know, as a young adult, and it just kind of took off from there. It was one of those things where, okay, and then I had a conversation with wrestlers that, you know, I saw on the show, and I was like, man, I wish I could do what you did. And then one of them just said, hey, are you serious? And I was like, yeah. You know, and by that point, I had already been in a wheelchair for about a year, and I became a very large human being. That's how I look at it. And he said, well, if you're serious, show up at the gym here, blah, 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 blah. See you on Tuesday. Tuesday, I was an hour early. And it started from there. And he said, Saturday, you're going to take a ride with us. This is what you're going to do. Bring gym clothes and blah, 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 blah. I was like, okay, you know, and I went and I set up the ring. And, you know, we got there early. And I drove everybody and paid for everything. And, you know, what you're supposed to do as a young guy in this professional wrestling business. And, you know, the next thing he said, go put your shorts on. I put my shorts on. Next thing I know, we're in the ring. Never looked back, you know, and then I found wrestling schools. I found Combat Zone. I trained with the Wild Samoans for a long time. I've trained with Dreamer. I've trained with Les Thatcher, obviously WWE. Al Snow is my mentor. I credit him for my knowledge and how I teach. I've been to Mexico and Japan and Europe and spent exclusive times there. And, I've learned lucha from Sky to Jorge Rivera. There's so many things that I've got to do and got to accomplish because of that, and that's kind of how my story happened. But if I would have known, like currently at the Wrestling Academy, we have Kurt Robinson, who is in that no ropes match on Saturday. Kurt is 15th. His father is Rob Dimension, and Rob has been in the wrestling business for years. And Rob has very close ties with Ring of Honor, and Rob brought him here. His best friend is Steve Carino, and Steve said take him to DJ. So, that speaks volumes. And now, I have those kids, guys like Rory Mondo and Drew Gulak. They started when they were 13, 14 kids. They were kids. Right. I wish I knew about stuff like that. I wish that existed in the DJ Hyde era of, when I broke in the business in the 90s. I was an ECW fan. That was my, oh my God, this place is great. And, it led me to where I am today and to the person I am today.
Wow.
I can talk, man. I can go.
But you know what? You've got a lot to talk about. You've gone through an awful friggin' lot.
It's all pushing. I've been around a long time. I'm getting old. When I first started training, I was 19. I'm 37 now. So I've been around a long time. But it's one of those things, like, I wouldn't trade it for the world. And, I've made a lot of mistakes. But that's part of the business,
Sure.
And I am here now to guide them, and I've put together a great team at the academy too. I know I've talked a lot about it, but it's something that I'm super proud of. You have me as the head trainer, but Drew Gulak is the program coordinator, and he runs a lot of the training now, where I have so many other things to do. It's like tonight at the academy. I didn't run a class tonight. I was out busy dealing with Cage of Death T-shirts, and I'm sitting here making DVDs and merchandise, stuff that's going to make us money.
Right.
That while the class is running, it's one of those things where, I've brought in guys like that have helped me. Preacher James runs a class. Mike Keener runs a class. These are guys that, they come in and help me, and they're guys that are experienced and guys that also have been a lot of places. Drew Gulak's one of the top independent wrestlers in the world. Mike Keener, is a referee by trade, but he's been everywhere. He used to work for ECW. These are guys that know their craft, know how to direct you, have been around a long time, and, can help you. Preacher James is an old school guy with a new school flavor. He's trained with a lot of great wrestlers and a lot of great people. That kind of got to go with it from there.
Now, the one thing you said earlier about your reputation, that probably most people won't say nice things about you. Being a promoter / wrestler, has anybody given you, or have you heard rumblings of people be like, oh, he's just putting himself over, because he's the owner, he's the booker, he's this, he's that?
Well, I can say this. I've never won a title since I've been the owner. I have been in the main events of shows. I have been in the main event of Cage of Death. It's one of those things that, I don't intend to do that. I never want to, but I hear it all the time. I'll tell you right now, I'll say I'm the best wrestler in the world because I believe how good I am. And, obviously people will be like, oh, well, he just has an ego. No, it's because I know that I'm accomplishing what I set out to do. I know how talented I truly am because I have to believe in myself, because if I don't, nobody else will. Sure. And there's a guy named CM Punk who said the same thing. And, I talk a lot, and I say a lot of, hey, I will tell you what's on my mind if you ask me, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Professional wrestling has a lot of people that, if anybody out there who's been in the business is listening to this, or
that's not been in the business, there's a lot of people that will say, oh, yeah, man, that was cool, and they don't even watch your stuff. Like, they don't know. They just want to kind of, everybody wants to, have their butt kissed and, pat it on the back, like, good job, buddy, you accomplished something. And like, no, that's not how it works. That's not what it's supposed to be. And everything's subject to opinion. So, like, what might not work for you, for me, or what might not work for me can work for you. We're different people, and fans like different things. It's like ice cream. You don't want just chocolate and vanilla. I like Rocky Road. I like cookies and cream. It's how it is, and there's so many different ways to go about things. You don't have to do it the same, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't like that. And again, I've made some mistakes. I've said a lot of things. When people might ask me what's on my mind, I will tell them. And I've done a shoot interview, which is very infamous and has got me in a lot of trouble, where I've exposed people's business. I was asked, so I exposed it. That was what I was being paid to do, because that's part of professional wrestling. And maybe I got a little emotional about some things because I feel a certain way. And yeah, I know better, but I've made those mistakes and I've learned from them. And it's helped me carry myself in a better way now as a better promoter. It's the same thing when you break into the professional wrestling business. Like, yeah, I've been a lot of places. I've done everything. Yeah, I've worked for WWE, and it doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. At the end of the day, right now, I'm still just another guy who's doing what he loves to do. And I'm not that big Rock or Stone Cold or Hulk Hogan guy. I'm just DJ Hyde. But if you go to Japan, I'm a lot bigger of a name there, or Europe. But it doesn't really mean it. It just means that, like, people want to see me a little bit more, and because I became popular there, or I was put into a good position, or somehow they liked what I was doing. And
right,
my rep is what it is. That's just how it's going to be. Plus, the hard part of that is that you are a professional wrestler, and you are the boss. I came from being a wrestler to going to people's bosses. So it's kind of one of those things where, like, your buddy or your best friend, who you've traveled up and down the road with for a decade, all of a sudden becomes your boss and starting to tell you what to do. And you're like, yo, buddy, like, I know you. Don't tell me what to do. And that becomes an issue. Where CZW is, and one of my downfalls, and I will say that this is a downfall, but it's also an upfall of CZW, is I don't look at my wrestlers like, oh, that's just some guy, and, like, I'm just going to get rid of them, and, like, I don't care, like, when I'm done using him, and, it's like, all right, I'm going to bring this guy for an angle. No, I actually care about them. I actually want them to get better, I want them to be successful. I actually... I will give them the shirt off my back. I will help them out. I will lend them, money or whatever they need because they're my friends and because they're my family. Like, I see them more than I see my parents. You develop that bond, and then when you're on the road with somebody, I look at a lot of my wrestlers, like, where specifically even my students, they're my kids. I don't have children, and I really don't want them. That's for sure. But, after you run a professional wrestling company and then you add a women's one, you definitely don't want kids. Because you're basically, I'm Papa Deej. That's what people, some of the people in the back say, oh, hey, Daddy Deej, I got to play that role. I got to babysit people. I got to make sure guys aren't acting, these kids that are like 20-some years old are acting crazy when they got to look professional, because the influence of the real world out there. You got to understand it's a very difficult task. And sometimes, again, I do things based on emotion instead of business, where I may book an angle or bring a guy in because I like him and like, I think he's a good guy and, like, I think that there's something there. I just haven't found it yet. Instead of going, okay, I know this guy has talent. He might be a pain in my butt. He might be a guy that, like, the locker room's not going to get along with. But the crowd's going to pay to see him. And, they want to see him. So that's kind of a problem, and that's one of my downfalls, but it's also one of my upfalls. It's why guys are so loyal. It's why Sami Callihan is coming back to CZW. He doesn't have to. He wants to, because I've taken care of them. It's why guys will drive countless hours and do the horrible things like sleep in cars and on people's floors or in airports for me, because I will take care of them, I will do whatever I need to do. And my staff and my family, while we always have disagreements and arguments, it's at the end of the day, I still love them. And sometimes that's a problem. And you know, it affects business, but, you know, I'm trying to find that happy medium. And now, after doing it for so long and learning from so many people, you know, promoters and bookers and guys that have helped me and that I've gone and got their knowledge, I've become who I am today.
It's pretty freaking impressive, though. You've accomplished a lot, man. Seriously, now you've done a lot, you've accomplished a lot, and you keep moving forward.
Isn't that kind of what you got to do? I mean, it's, you know, I've said to my staff that, you know, I know Cage of Death is this Saturday, but, you know, and we're going to take off for the first time in many years of January so I can reevaluate the company. But in 2016, we need to grow. We need to grow leaps and bounds, and that is the direction we need to go. Because if we're not and we're being stagnant, why are we doing this? And,
True.
You know, I'm making strides, like I said, like CZW Studios, you know, getting us on Roku, doing business with all these international companies that have taken our product and our guys. You know, a lot of guys that wouldn't have accomplished certain things had it not been, you know, for me mending bridges or me reaching out to places, and I'm still doing that. I might not be consistent with it, but it's, hey, here's a good idea, and then you develop things from there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But
right.
At the end of the day, it's still a great opportunity, and we're growing. And that's a big, big thing. And that's what we need to do next year. We need to take another step. You know, I don't mind if it's a baby step, but we're going to have to take some kind of step. And that is where I'm going to go, okay, who are the right people? Are people doing the right jobs? You know, we're constantly looking for talent. I'm always on the look for the next big guy. And I think that's the knack I have. I've always been able to make talent. And that's a CZW thing. We've always done. And that's what the MO has to be.
Absolutely. Well, the big day, it's almost upon us, Saturday, and I do mean big day Saturday because it's all day long this is going to be going on. At your home, the CZW, the home base of Voorhees Flyers Skate Zone. Festivities start at what, 12:30 you said?
Yep. Doors will open at 12:30.
12:30, pack a lunch, bring a pillow because you're going to be there for 12 hours.
Well, you know, they got great food, and you know what's great is you can always, with your ticket purchase, you can always, like, if you want to come and you just want to come and pay the $5 and get your autographs and your merchandise, you know, or if you just want to come to Dojo Wars and bring an unwrapped toy, you can do that, but you can leave and you can go to Chipotle or, you know, any of the many other places around, Chick-fil-A, Smoothie Kings, and Five Guys, and Wendy's, and Smashburger, and all the great things within 2 minutes, and then come back for Cage of Death. Or you can just choose to come to Cage of Death. Doors will open at 6:30. It's really up to the fan and their choice, so they're just going to get a great quality day of wrestling. You know, you can pick and choose what you want to do, and that's what's great about it. So, but if you're going to be there all day, we're going to give you something great.
That's awesome. This has been a lot of fun, DJ. It was finally nice to really talk to you.
No, I enjoy coming on. I enjoy talking about wrestling. It's what I love. You know, I wish more people. I wish we had more people on board with CZW and WSU and Dojo Wars, and you know, it's spreading the knowledge of what we do and who we are, and whether I reach that one person out there listening. All I ask is if you've never seen us, give us a chance. You know, if you don't like it, I'm easy to get a hold of. Tell me what you don't like. You know, you can find me on social media at DJ Hyde _1, you know, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Periscope. You can email me at djhyde@czwrestling.com. You know, you can hit up CZ Wrestling at info@czwrestling. Follow us at Combat Zone on all those same platforms, Facebook, Instagram, at WSU Wrestling, you know, and at Dojo Wars. I mean, I literally, like, you know, hey, check it out. If you like it, let us know. If there's something you don't like, let me know. I'll be more than happy to talk with any fan, anywhere, anybody, because you guys are the ones that support what we do. You know, same thing with you and coming on these shows. I'm so happy that you support what we do. I just love talking wrestling. It's what I do.
Cool. Well, we'll have you back on, and actually we have a new wrestling show starting on our network in a couple weeks, so I'll hook you up with him and get you on there. You guys can talk some wrestling too.
Sounds great. I'd love to have him or any of the CZW WSU wrestlers.
Awesome. Yeah, well, let's do that. Let's start hooking up some people and getting everybody a little chance on the air.
Sounds great.
Cool. All right, DJ. Well, good luck Saturday. I know the house will be packed.
I hope to see you there. I hope so. I mean, I look forward to seeing all the fans. We're going to give them a great time and have a great environment for one of the biggest and best shows of the year.
Should be awesome.
Well, hopefully I'll see you guys there, but thank you.
My prediction is you're going to sleep very well Sunday.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm probably not going to sleep at all on Friday, but I'll try.
All right, man. Well, we'll talk soon, and again, kick ass on Saturday.
No problem. Thank you for having me on.
You got it, man. Take care. All right, everybody. There he goes, the one and only DJ Hyde of Combat Zone Wrestling. That dude's done a lot, man.
Yeah. Very interesting interview.
Yeah. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and you know what? He knows some people don't like him. He knows that some people might talk crap about him. He don't care. Like, he's just doing what he thinks is right for not only himself but his company and the business. So you got to respect that.
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as people not liking him goes, that's just wrestling. You know what I mean? Like, there may not be an industry in the world that's full of bigger babies. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Right. Everybody doesn't like a handful of people, and it's exactly like you said. Somebody didn't, do the handshake right, or somebody, didn't thank me for being at the show, and all of a sudden they just hate them. You know what I mean? Every wrestling company calls every other wrestling company's talent yardards.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's just a fact of life.
The one thing I'll say is they have their fan base and they cater to it.
They do. Like, I was telling Moondog that in private. I was like, you know what? The one thing that's really impressive is he knows his brand and he knows how to sell his brand. And that's just it. You know what I mean?
Totally. Well, that's cool. It's very cool.